All right, thanks, debaters. Now 8 minutes for Dr. Shook to ask questions of Dr. Craig.
Okay, we've done a fair bit of wrangling over who has the burden of proof. I think we may be tiring of that. I am. We may also have reached an impasse on this business of proving this and proving that. Perhaps in fairness, we should spend some more time, if you're willing, Dr. Craig, to focus on the morality business and the Bible and experience for those in the audience who may be more curious about those issues. Let me start then with morality. These objective moral values you contrast very strongly with subjective moral values, and it does look like you've set up a very neat dichotomy, of course, between objective and subjective. This atheist is a humanist and denies that the most important moral values that we should treasure and respect are subjective. And so then this atheist describes them as objective, right, in the sense that they represent the collective judgment of most, hopefully all of humanity, perhaps someday. You would like to make the counter-argument, if I understand you correctly, and I'd like you to correct me if I'm mistaken, that even the view that humanity has reached some solid conclusions about some very important moral values still can leave plenty of room for an atheist to view these moral values as still subjective, and you would accuse such an atheist then of, you know, being apt to rape somebody at a moment's notice.
No, I didn't say that, Dr. Shook.
Could you clarify
I never said an atheist was
why
apt
exactly,
to do this.
Right. Why, if not objective, right, why is my category of objective insufficient, I guess, would be the question.
Because I can't see on your view of moral relativism, which says that moral values are relative to the individual or to human societies, I can't see how you can condemn the psychopath as doing anything morally wrong. Or I can't see how you can say that Nazi Germany, National Socialist Germany, did anything wrong. What they did was in accord with their ethical system in that society. And on naturalism, there is no transcendent anchor point that stands above individuals and societies to serve as an absolute plumb line. So these are just relative, and there's no basis for saying that this individual is wrong and this one is right.
I understand. So this business of objectivity, where I describe it as not just this society or that person, but this business of sort of the collective wisdom of all of humanity that we want to preserve and pass on to the rest of humanity, still isn't good enough for you. I claim that it's going to have to be good enough because religion really has no way of knowing what these allegedly absolute truths are. So my next question would be, speaking from your perspective as a Christian theologian, could you explain why certain moral values that your religion advances today have been occasionally denied or changed, modified? Take war, take capital punishment, take abortion, take divorce. If it's so easy for religion to find these objective moral truths when the atheist is somehow lost in the dark, why is there so much dissent even within one's own denomination these days? Why all the fighting?
It's critical that we distinguish with respect to this argument between an epistemological argument and an ontological foundation for moral values. My argument is not that we need religion in order to tell us what is right and wrong, how to distinguish good from evil. I have never claimed that we need the guidance of religion for an epistemological purpose. In fact, quite the contrary, I believe as a Christian that God's moral law is written on our hearts so that we have a kind of instinctive grasp of the difference between right and wrong, and hence there are largely universal moral codes. My argument is one about the ontological foundations of morality. If morality is just a socio-biological byproduct of the evolutionary process, then it seems to me that it is simply ephemeral and non-objective, And so we need to have some kind of a transcendent plumb line or anchor point to ground objective values. And then the epistemological question is quite apart from that. So I'm very prepared to say that, yes, absolutely, people's views on what is right and wrong or moral values change. I think that moral progress is genuinely possible, that we can come to discern the good and the right more clearly. But on the naturalistic view, there is no such thing as moral progress. There's only moral change. But you cannot say that one is better approximating the good, because there is no absolute standard to which one is approximating.
I promise to talk about the Bible and about Revelation. I'll fulfill that promise. One question that I would like to ask, I raised it earlier, and I don't think you've taken the opportunity to reply yet. What non-Christian, non-Bible-based sources, contemporary with Jesus' life or death or soon thereafter, have any capacity to corroborate whatsoever claims made in the Bible by Christians already committed to their theological views? Can you cite anything?
I can. And these are reviewed, for example, in a book like The Evidence for Jesus by Richard France, or a recent book by Paul Eddy and Greg Boyd called The Jesus Legend, where they go through the references to Jesus of Nazareth in Roman, Jewish, and extra-biblical Christian sources. But the more fundamental point here, Dr. Shook, that needs to be understood is that the presupposition that the documents that were eventually collected into the New Testament need outside corroboration in order to serve as useful historical sources is itself a prejudice against those sources. And what modern historians working with these documents have discovered is that there is very, very good reason to trust these biblical narratives as historical sources, so that it's not a matter of looking to outside corroboration. It will be using tests like multiple attestation, embarrassment, dissimilarity, and other criteria of authenticity by which scholars judge these narratives to be credibly historical or not. So the whole approach you've suggested is prejudicial and assumes that these documents have no historical value unless and until they're corroborated by outside sources, and that's simply a mistaken presupposition.
Nevertheless, it is the presupposition of academic historians who aren't already pre-committed to proving Christianity at whatever
that's
cost.
not at all true.
Let me make one last point. By your standards of historical credulity, Islamic scholars of the Quran therefore must be believed when they claim that an angel visited Muhammad and delivered the Quran. For you see, Islamic scholars of the Quran all agree. Oh, they all agree. You see, by your standards, the atheist now must accept not your religion, but 100.
No, that's not at all the case what historians are doing when they investigate these documents.
I'll give you 30 seconds to answer.
Oh, when you investigate the Quran using these same sorts of criteria for historicity and authenticity, I think you can show that the Quran incorporates demonstrably legendary accounts into it, that it's got historical inaccuracies and so forth. And in fact, the evidence for the historical Jesus is far better than the evidence for the historical Muhammad in terms of the sources and the nearness of those sources to the date of the person living. So I would be quite prepared to do an even-handed, historically objective comparison of the Quran and the New Testament as historical sources.
Thank you, Dr. Craig.